Hello everyone again, this is Dr. David and I'm here with Sherry Platt and our speaker today, Annelle Norman. And really when I first met Annelle, I met her through a mutual friend who also I met through another friend called Todd Houston, who is a remarkable person, and he'll probably be on this webinar very soon, on this platform very soon, as well as Maya, who introduced me to Annelle. And it was an interesting story. Maya had struggled with severe stomach trouble and severe allergies for years and years and years, and she had gone to several different doctors, tried several modalities, and it just wasn't working until she finally met Annelle. And after some tests and some checking, after she investigated a little further than most and found out that Maya had been suffering from gluten intolerance. I hope I got that right. And with a few adjustments here and there, Maya's decades-long agonizing struggle suddenly was turned around, and simply because she was able to find out what the problem was. And so it's remarkable what can be found out if you decide to look in a slightly different way than what most people, the general direction that most people look in. And so therefore it is really, really, I would say it's an honor to have Annelle on to talk about things that are very, very important about how the human body works. And if you got the email, remember there's a health questionnaire and there's a metabolic assessment questionnaire that I believe is on our site right now. And you can download that and follow with the presentation. I think she's going to be referring to that during the presentation. And Sherry, I think I'm also going to hand this over to you to introduce Annelle.
Okay. Annelle Norman, functional medicine specialist trained in both holistic and conventional medicine, with a degree in complementary medicine from University of Westminster in London, having specialized in both functional and homeopathic medicine. Annelle reads blood chemistry and endocrinology lab results from a functional perspective for clients across North America. Whether you are dealing with an acute ailment such as a cold, flu, or injury, or a chronic one such as blood sugar, thyroid, hormonal, energy, or autoimmune, or celiac disease, I'm not sure if I said that correct, food sensitivities, or mood disorders, Annelle can assist you in restoring health and balance in your life. So again, I'll echo what David said. We are very grateful, Annelle, to you for taking time out of your very busy life to share this wonderful information with our webinar attendees. So over to you, Annelle.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Sherry. This has been a very interesting and exciting process to prepare for this. And as I was saying earlier to the two of you, it's been an interesting process because I organized my life around not being stressed as much as possible. Of course, I'm not totally successful with that, but this process has introduced me to some technological tools and taken me to a place where I was totally unfamiliar with what I needed to do. And I hope that our audience this evening has some compassion with some of us who are not quite so sophisticated in terms of technology. But there are several forms of stress. One of them, of course, is coming up for most of us here in North America. Physiological stress in the form of cold, damp, freezing weather, driving conditions, and so forth. So our environment offers us an opportunity to experience physiological stress. Then there is chronic stress, the sort that we have from going to our jobs and experiencing the economic situation. And then, of course, there's acute stress. And we will talk about all of that, how it affects your health, and what you can do about it. David mentioned, and I encourage each of you to go to the website and download the forms. There's one called neurotransmitter assessment form and another one called metabolic assessment form. And if you can fill those out, if you haven't already, while you're listening with one ear, then it will be very helpful for you in terms of really making sense of what all of this means to you. So we've talked about that already, and in fact, the next slide, this slide, has to do with the first of those metabolic assessment forms. If you want to either print off this slide, which I think you can do, or perhaps just come back to it, you can play it back after you have already assessed yourself on the metabolic assessment form, then it will start to make sense to you. On the left here, I've given you the key for the metabolic assessment form, what each of those categories stand for. So category 1 has to do with how your colon and your digestion is working. And if you're answering positive to most all of those questions, and or you have some pretty significant symptoms so that you're scoring 8 to 15 in that category, then you've definitely got some issues with your colon and your digestion. The second category has to do with how your stomach acid is doing. Now, lots of people are under the impression that we have too much stomach acid, and just the opposite is the truth. Most of us don't have enough stomach acid to properly digest our food, so that by the time it gets into the small intestine and the lower intestine, it's not broken down so that it can be absorbed, but rather it's it's fermenting in there because it's still little pieces of corn, little pieces of meat, little pieces of green bean, instead of little packets of fat and protein and vitamins and minerals. So having enough hydrochloric acid is really, really important. And one of the things that surprises me and dismays me is that Pepcid is the #1 selling drug in America. And Pepcid, of course, is meant to lower stomach acid. This is very misguided. It has more to do with treating the symptom rather than treating the cause. And that is really what I'm all about, is finding the cause, finding the source of the problem and treating it there. You know, there's an old story about a steam engine. This is back in the old days when steam engines traveled up and down the Mississippi. And there was a mighty steam engine that hauled thousands and thousands of dollars worth of cargo up and down the Mississippi. And one day, the steam engine broke down, and the captain of the ship brought all sorts of engineers and mechanics and repairmen in, and no one could fix it. And he of course was losing thousands of dollars every day. So he heard about a fellow that he had to send a message for, and the man came from quite some distance away. And when he finally arrived, he was so thrilled to see him because people had told him that he would be able to fix the problem. So the man came on board, listened to the captain's story, fired up a couple of valves, listened to the engine. Then he walked over into a corner, pulled a little tiny hammer out of his belt, and tapped on a lever. And in an instant, the steam engine sprang into life, and everything was chugging and puffing, and the captain was just overjoyed. He was thrilled, jumping up and down, and he shook the man's hand, and he said, "Oh, this is fabulous. How much do I owe you?" And this was a very long time ago, when $1,500 was a lot of money. And the man said to the captain, "That'll be $1,500. And the captain was taken aback. He said, "What? All you did was walk in and tap a lever, and you want $1,500 for that?" And the man looked at the captain and said, "But I knew the lever to tap." And that's my approach to medicine. I'm always looking for the lever that is going to make the difference, that if you will correct this, then it will be like a row of dominoes just going down, 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 one after the other, and correcting all of the issues that arose from that problem. So stomach acid and digestion, as you will find out, are a considerable part of a lot of Americans' issues. The next category 3 is has to do with having too much stomach acid, and of course more people are treated for that than is really the case. Most of us don't have too much, we have too much at the wrong time, and that's what's happening. Then category 4 has to do with how your pancreas and your blood sugar is working. Category 5 is liver and gallbladder function. Your liver, of course, is your body's detoxifier, and your gallbladder is the organ that holds the bile that helps you digest and emulsify fats. So if high cholesterol is one of your concerns, then you might want to look at your liver and your gallbladder function rather than taking statin drugs. Then category 6 has to do with hypoglycemia. Lots of us are walking around with blood sugar in the low, getting up in the morning, rushing off without breakfast. And if you will manage your blood sugar, you will absolutely change your life and your experience in your life. Then the next one is hyperglycemia, so high blood sugar. So if you take category 4, category 6, and category 7, and you look at those numbers, if you're running in the 8s, 9s, and 10s in each of those categories, then you need to know that you're a candidate for insulin resistance, developing that, if you're not already in a stage of insulin resistance. Category 8 is hyperadrenal, and I'm going to, let's see here, I've forgotten already how I, oh well, I'll skip it. Sorry, there we go, back.
Annelle, if you want to go to your form, you can just hit your escape key and then pull up your form.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So here's metabolic assessment form, and now we're on the second page of metabolic assessment form. Category, let's go back. Category 8 has to do with how your cortisol is working. Cortisol is responsible for our waking and sleeping rhythms. It's responsible for all sorts of energy issues, wakes you up in the morning, keeps you awake, gives you energy to do what you want to do with your day, and then it should be low at night so that you can go to sleep, and during your sleep it rises again. We're going to talk at length about cortisol issues that are erratic and how it affects you, but category 8 has to do with having too low cortisol. Category 9 has to do with having too high cortisol. This is a hyper-worried, anxious state. 10 is hypothyroid. Lots of this going on. It's like an epidemic. In fact, both adrenal issues and thyroid issues are epidemic in this country. Category 11 has to do with having too much thyroid, which is oftentimes, well, both of them are oftentimes autoimmune conditions. Then 12 and 13 both have to do with how your pituitary is working. We'll talk about your hypothalamus and your pituitary. Then category 14 and 15 have to do with male issues, prostate and male hormone issues, andropause, and so forth. Category 16 has to do with menstruating females, and 17 is menopausal females. So if you will score those for yourself and follow along, you will learn a lot. Okay. Then on the neurotransmitter assessment form, now this is a newer form for me. I've only been working with it for a couple of years. The metabolic assessment form I've been working with for probably 5 or 6 years. And whereas I prefer to work with blood chemistry, I can actually tell an awful lot about what your situation is just from looking at your subjective scores. And that's true of the neurotransmitter form as well. If you are scoring high or have lots of answers in section A, it has to do with your level of toxicity. And if your liver isn't clearing your toxins out, then it actually affects how your brain is working, not only your energy level and your immune system, but how your brain is working, your memory, your focus, walking into rooms and forgetting what you walked in there for, etc. Section B is the degree to which stress is affecting your brain function, and C1 goes back to those hypoglycemic issues, how that's affecting your thinking and your behavior, and C2, the degree to which insulin resistance is causing you problems. Then 1S evaluates your need for serotonin support, and you have probably all heard of Paxil and Prozac. Those are two SSRIs. That stands for serotonin, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, which all that means is that you're recycling the serotonin that you have in your body. Well, we all know that when we recycle things, they deteriorate. The strength of them, the integrity of the raw materials eventually deteriorate. And so people who have been on SSRIs for a long period of time generally find that they don't help very much. And there are actually ways that you can feed your brain and supplement your brain so as to enhance your production of serotonin. Then section 2D has to do with dopamine. Dopamine is motivation, getting things done, following through on things, how you feel about yourself. Lots of important functions relate to dopamine in your brain. Then 3G is GABA, and GABA I like to think of sort of as a chill pill. If you're anxious all the time, if you have trouble quieting your brain going to bed, you probably are running low on GABA, and so some of that will be beneficial. And then section 4ACH evaluates your need for acetylcholine support. Acetylcholine is an amino acid that feeds the brain and keeps all of those neural pathways going so that the neurons can talk to each other. So in my introduction, Sherry mentioned that I practice something called functional medicine. And most of us have had the experience of not feeling well, but once we go to the doctor says, well, pull some blood and take a look at it, and we'll see if there's anything wrong with you. And despite the fact that you may have a list of symptoms that just don't feel like you normally feel, the doctor calls you back, or really what happens more often is the doctor's nurse calls you back a couple of weeks later and says, oh, your blood is just fine, there's nothing really wrong with you. And I don't know about you, but the last time that happened to me, that was really, really frustrating, because I knew that there is something wrong with me, and yet why couldn't my doctor tell me what that was? Well, back in the 90s, there were a group of doctors, medical doctors at the University of Michigan, who noticed that there were some common challenges, and that they were really practicing disease care, not health care. And they wanted to become more proactive. And so they set up they designed a research project where they followed several thousand people over 5 years. They pulled their blood and every 6 months, and then watched their medical history to see what happened. And sure enough, they discovered that they could look back on their blood work and actually predict. They could have predicted, once they knew what they were looking at, that they were going to have kidney stones, or that they were going to have a heart attack, or that they were going to have an infection of some sort, or even that they were in jeopardy for cancer. So they called that medicine, that form of looking at blood chemistry, functional medicine. And this slide really talks about what functional medicine is. It's personalized. It deals with primary prevention and the underlying causes of disease and seeks to treat those underlying causes, seeks to find the lever and tap the lever in order to prevent serious chronic illnesses from developing. It is science-based. We use lab tests of all sorts, but what's different is that it individualizes it, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. So they're looking at biochemical individuality. It's very patient-centered and all about patient care rather than disease care. And I love this quote here from Sir William Osler. It's more important to know what patient, I cut the rest of that quote off there, sorry. Basically what he said is it's more important to know what patient has the disease than the disease has the patient. And what he's saying is it's just really important to treat the patient rather than the disease. Many of us, of course, have been ill, and we may have overheard the nurses or the staff or the doctor say, you know, she's the one with kidney illness, or she's the one with cancer of the breast, or so we're being identified with our disease rather than as ourselves. And functional medicine is all about health as a positive vitality. So going back to those blood tests that the functional doctors did, it's important for you to understand that lab tests are interpreted from within the scope of what they call normal lab ranges. And normal lab ranges are based on statistical norms. So when a lab opens, they begin plotting all of their results for, let's say, protein, and eventually a bell curve becomes apparent, and then they statistically lop off 3.5% to 7% on one side and on the other side, and they say that's the normal range. So at the bottom of this screen, you'll see the normal range. When they did that research, the functional doctors discovered that if they narrowed the lab range, then and they read the labs that were along these sides here. So if your results fell along here or along here, then they could predict that you were going to have a problem. And if they corrected those problems, then they knew that they were going to spare you the problem of an upcoming illness. So what's normal is not necessarily healthy. For instance, what's normal in San Jose, the healthiest city in the nation, is not what's normal in New Orleans, Louisiana. And the link that I have there is to a study of they picked 50 cities in the United States and ranked them according to body mass index, environment, diet, vegetable and fruit consumption, et cetera, and San Jose came out at the top and New Orleans came out at the bottom. And it's illogical that we would go from in here to out there instantaneously, right? Well, I suppose if you drank a bottle of nail polish remover or stepped out in front of a Mack truck, you would end up going from here to there or from here to there instantaneously. But more than likely, it's a process by which we get from in here to out there. So in functional medicine, we use a number of assessment tools. We use plain old blood chemistry, and there are a number of places where you can acquire these tests on your own via the lab. If you don't want to go to your doctor or connect with me, You can actually order the blood chemistry that I use from a place called directlabs.com. The price that I have here is the price that I get. I think your price on that would be about $99. Also, I use saliva testing, and I'll explain the benefits of that in a bit. And then, as I said before, I rely a tremendous amount on the metabolic assessment form and the neurotransmitter assessment form. I've used those two in conjunction with the saliva testing and the blood chemistry for so many thousands of patients by now that I can actually, I feel like I have a bit of a crystal ball. I can look at those metabolic assessment forms and neurotransmitter assessment forms and predict fairly accurately what's going to show up on your blood chemistry just on the basis of your own symptoms of imbalance. So if you're suffering from fatigue, from headaches, you keep getting colds and flus, your hair's falling out, you have breakfast and your belly bloats, by the time you get to the office you wish you'd put a pair of pants on that was bigger around the waist, you have chronic allergies, you can't get yourself started in the morning, you need to have caffeine or sweets. Any of these symptoms are signs that your body is not functioning as it should, and there are answers and solutions for all of these. So here we're going to begin our lesson that I call Physiology 101. Lots of us don't have a clue what our body, how our bodies function, where organs are. And when I was in medical school, I just fell in love with anatomy and physiology. We are such miraculous beings, and the functions of our body and our organs are so absolutely incredible that I have this judgment that I think everybody needs to know at least a little bit about how their bodies are working. So when my patients come to me, I help them to understand how all the bits and pieces are connected. You know, these days we have gastroenterologists, we have neurologists, endocrinologists, there are specialists, and we don't have very many general practitioners. So we don't have very many doctors that are viewing us as holistic creatures, where we have doctors that are seeing us as their specialty, as their bits and pieces. But, you know, there was an old song that said the knee bone's connected to the shin bone and shin bone's connected to the ankle bone. Well, all of us connects with all the rest of us. And I think it's important to understand how it all interconnects. So this evening you're getting a lesson in how some of your endocrinology system connects. So here we have a depiction of your kidneys, which are major detoxification organs. They sit just about at waist height and along your back. And so a lot of times when people are having low back pain, it's not muscular pain, it may be kidney pain. Your adrenals sit on top of your kidneys. They're little pyramidal-shaped organs. And then we have represented here your intestines and your gonads, either ovaries or testicles. Now, there are more endocrine glands in your gut. Endocrine glands are hormone glands. They make the hormones that tell everybody else what to do. There are more endocrine glands in your intestine than in all the rest of your body. And between 70 and 80% of your immune system functions actually originate here in your gut. And what most people don't know is that between 70 and 90% of all of your neurotransmitters, the hormones that make your brain and all of your nerves talk to each other, are actually manufactured in the gut. So this is where most of your serotonin is made. And again, serotonin has to do with mood, with your appetite, with all sorts of behavior, happy behavior, sad behavior. It has to do with how your heart is working, muscle contractions, depression, memory, learning. Serotonin is key to all of these functions. It's where most of your dopamine is made. And dopamine is heavily involved in how your brain works, in cognition, in memory, in motivation for getting things done and finishing projects and being inspired. And then what you think about yourself as you're either completing those things or not completing your projects. Then GABA has a calming effect, and basically what it comes down to is if you have a happy tummy, you have a happy brain. And the opposite is true. If you have an unhappy tummy, you're quite likely to have an unhappy brain. And then the corollary to that is also true, that if you have an unhappy brain, you probably are having stomach problems. So stress and unhappiness oftentimes shows up in your gut. So now we've added some more organs here. We have your liver. Let me get my pointer here. There we go. I'm looking for my pointer. There we go. So here, this sort of fan-shaped object is your liver, and as I mentioned earlier, your liver is your body's most potent detoxification organ. It works in concert with your kidneys, but you have lots and lots of functions that your liver does. It stores glycogen for you. It's part of your immune system. It filters your blood. It's very, very important. Then you have your stomach. Your pancreas, of course, is where insulin is created. Your thyroid. Thyroid is responsible for energy, mood. All of your metabolic processes rely upon your thyroid for making it work. Your brain, and in your brain you have a hypothalamus and a pituitary. And I call them the king and queen. The hypothalamus and pituitary tell all the other glands what to do based upon a communication system between them and the adrenals. That communication system is called the HPA, hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. And that communication system begins with this structure right here, the limbic system. Now, the limbic system only has one job and one job only, and it is to determine whatever might be in your environment that is important to you. And the most important thing is whether you're safe or not. So it's always checking your environment. It's listening, it's seeing, it's feeling, it's sensing. And because it's a very, very, very primitive part of our physiology, in fact, it's so primitive that we share it with reptiles. It is really primarily about survival. So many years ago, many years ago, it was all about, are we safe or not? Is there a saber-toothed tiger waiting to jump out from behind a bush? And so it's always checking around, and when it sees, saber-toothed tiger, hurry! And that causes us to go into fight or flight. So we go into a state of alarm, which is driven by a hormone called adrenaline, right? Now, most of us don't stay in a state that looks like this poor kitty cat, but when we do, it is fueled by this hormone called adrenaline, which causes this shot of electricity to go throughout our body, starts our heart beating faster, slows down some non-essential processes like digestion, and speeds up other processes because it's all about survival. It makes it possible for us to pick up a stick and beat that saber-toothed tiger off, or run like crazy in order to get up a tree, or in some cases to freeze. Lots of animals just simply freeze when there's a predator around, and they know that by being very, very still, they won't be detected. So we have that response, or sometimes we have chronic response. And we'll talk about that later. How would you like to be this little guy? Talk about worried. And of course, as most of us know, we don't have saber-toothed tigers waiting to jump out from behind the garbage bin in the alley anymore. But we do have banks collapsing and mortgages being foreclosed on and jobs being lost and economic downfall and planes flying into buildings and kids getting into drugs and all sorts of worries. And most of us are spending more of our adrenal strength worrying than we are physically protecting ourselves. So this talks about survival. Oops, sorry. I'll let that go in the background. Totally forgot. I had a little shot of adrenaline there. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. That was my credit card machine clearing itself. So this starts to tell us how this whole metabolic process looks. So when our limbic system communicates with our adrenals that we are in jeopardy, the adrenals secrete adrenaline, and that's what causes us to be able to run long distances, to fight off a mugger, to be able to pick up a car and pull our kid out from under it. Adrenaline can turn us into the Incredible Hulk, depending on the circumstance and depending on whether your adrenals are healthy. Now, adrenaline is made from a hormone called cortisol, and cortisol is the worry hormone. When we're not using it to worry with, we might be using it to make cortisone. And cortisone is the body's most potent anti-inflammatory. So if you have things going on in your gut, you've got food sensitivities, or you have parasites, or maybe you've got arthritis in your knee, or you've been injured in a football game or going down the stairs, your body is using a lot of cortisol in order to make cortisone, in order to put those fires out. Cortisol is made from DHEA, and DHEA is made from and becomes a hormone called pregnenolone. And the DHEA is a steroid hormone that's androgenizing and is involved in muscle development and so forth. But its primary role in this metabolic pathway is to provide a foundation for cortisol and or to provide raw materials for pregnenolone. Now, pregnenolone is called the mother of all hormones. Why? Because when our gonads, when our ovaries check out or our testicles stop making testosterone at middle age, we are totally 100% reliant upon our pregnenolone for all of our estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone for the rest of our lives. So if you want to be chasing your wife around the kitchen table when you're 75 or 80, you need to make sure that your adrenal system stays in good shape. If you want to make sure that you don't have osteoporosis because you're lacking estrogen, then you need to make sure that you keep your adrenal system very, very healthy. Now, of course, we know that your adrenals is all about about life and death, and your brain doesn't really care about anything else. It is all about survival. Every cell of our being is programmed for survival. So when push comes to shove, if it has to make a choice between the adrenal system and some other system, it's always going to favor the adrenal system. So we have an epidemic of infertility now, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that our young people are very stressed, either because they're not eating properly or because they're out in the work world and they're way stressed. And as a result, they're pulling on their adrenal system in order to survive. So your brain is smart enough to know that if you can't survive, then you better not have any babies, because you're not going to be able to make those babies survive. So it actually will cause infertility. Any woman or any man going through infertility treatment should always check on their adrenal system before they go any further to make sure that that system is healthy. Now, here's a little thing that most people don't know about blood tests. If you go to your medical doctor to say, I want to check on my adrenals, they're going to take a blood test and check on your cortisol level and your DHEA level. For one thing, they're just going to get one sample, and they're going to compare that again to those normals. And for another, your cortisol is highest in the morning, and then it lowers throughout the day. And if you start out within the low range of normal first thing in the morning when you go get your blood drawn, more than likely you're going to be lower than normal by the end of the day. So blood testing for adrenal levels just really doesn't work very well. But what does work really well is a saliva test. And you can go to diagnostex.com. That's on one of the slides previously. You can pull the whole show up and go back through that slide, but it's diagnostex.com. And they will tell you where you can find a practitioner in your area, or you can just contact me and I'll help you out with that. I can actually send you the kit and we can work long distance. But testing saliva actually tests the cortisol levels at 4 different times during the day. We can also check your DHEA. We can check your pregnenolone, your estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. And saliva testing tests the actual active form of those hormones, whereas serum, the blood test, tests an inactive form, a form that needs something else done to it before it can actually operate for you. So saliva testing is far more advantageous in terms of getting a really good handle on what's going on with this particular system. And I reiterate, if your adrenal system is not healthy, none of your other endocrine systems are going to be healthy. If they are, they won't be for long. So be sure to check in on your adrenal system. Now, there are some markers in your blood chemistry that refer to or would tell us if your adrenals are in jeopardy, but they won't tell us specifically how. They're like little red flags that tell us we need to get more information. So, stress, both physiological stress in the form of injury and psychological stress in the form of worry and stress, strongly impact your health and, more importantly, your future health. So this slide talks about a stage of adrenal fatigue called the resistance stage. And this is where your body actually steals from pregnenolone. Here at the bottom of the metabolic pathway, it steals from pregnenolone in order to make DHEA. And during prolonged stress, the body will shunt pregnenolone into cortisol at the expense of DHEA, preferring to make cortisol it needs to deal with stress rather than making sex hormones. So if your husband is not feeling particularly randy these days, that may be why. He may be very, very stressed. Or if your wife or your boyfriend or your girlfriend is sort of having a headache every night, you might want to suggest that they have their adrenals checked. And so you'll notice that these people are wearing pajamas. And that's what happens when you go into the exhaustion stage. You really only have energy to get through your day, not have a lot of fun in the evening, and all you really want to do is sleep and rest. It's depressing, and all of your other endocrine glands get involved, your thyroid, your ovaries, and your immune system. So, having learned about this, we need to know more about how your diet affects all of these systems. So one thing that a lot of people don't know is that your brain works on one thing and one thing only, and that's glycogen, blood sugar. Now, lots of us are getting up in the morning and getting dressed and rushing off to work with a cup of coffee in our hand without any breakfast. And so we start out with low blood sugar. Now, your brain knows that if your blood sugar is low, if it gets too low, you're actually going to pass out. So when your brain reads that your blood sugar is getting low, it sends an alarm to your adrenals. We're going to die! We're going to die! We need some sugar in here! And your adrenals pop into action, and they send a signal to your liver, telling your liver to take some fat that is stored in the liver and turn it into sugar. Well, most of us know, if we spend any time in the kitchen at all, that that process of turning fat into sugar is not a very rapid process. But your liver is going to go, aye, and start doing that. And in the meantime, your adrenals are going to send a rather agitated or perhaps hysterically emotional signal back to your brain. Will you please make her eat something now? And that's when the person between you and the sandwich on the counter better get out of the way, because your brain knows that if you eat something white or that has white in it, it's going to go instantaneously into sugar. It's going to hit your stomach. Your stomach is going to get blood sugar into your bloodstream, and your brain is going to be able to stay alive for another few minutes. So it actually craves white food when your blood sugar is low. And so that explains that craving for the bagel or the candy or the can of soda. And, of course, a lot of us are really trying to trick our brain by having something sweet that tastes sweet, but it's sweetened with a no-calorie sweetener. Well, guess what? The brain still reads it as sweet, and that triggers the pancreas to make insulin. So whether you're actually eating something sweet or tasting something sweet that's artificially sweetened, the brain reads it as sweet, and then your pancreas secretes insulin. And when that happens, more often than not, your insulin spikes. And when your insulin spikes, then you are secreting too much insulin for your system. And eventually, if you do that over and over and over again, which most people do, they get down here, their blood sugar is low, they eat something sweet, their blood sugar spikes, the insulin spikes, that brings the blood sugar down, and most Americans are doing this all day long. It's called SAD, the Standard American Diet. And when this happens, each time this happens, it is stressing the adrenals. Each time your blood sugar dips, it stresses the adrenals. Each time this happens, it is stressing your pancreas and taking you one step closer to insulin-resistant diabetic. And what we now know is that most cardiovascular disease, high triglycerides, high cholesterol, has more to do with high blood sugar and high insulin levels than it has to do with cholesterol levels. So managing your blood sugar is absolutely essential for being healthy. So best piece of advice that I could give you tonight would be, when you get up in the morning, no matter how you feel, have some protein. It could be a handful of nuts. It could be a scrambled egg. It could be a bit of yogurt or a protein shake. Have something that has protein in it. It could even be leftovers from dinner tonight if they were good enough. Have some protein first thing in the morning within half an hour, 45 minutes of getting up. Stabilize that blood sugar of yours. And then before you go off to work, take a baggie full of nuts or throw a hard-boiled egg in your satchel so that you can have a half a hard-boiled egg at 11 before you go to lunch at 12:30, and then you can have another half a hard-boiled egg or some almonds or some walnuts. Nuts and seeds are perfect little packages of vitamins and minerals and fats and can really help stabilize our blood sugar. But doing this keeps your brain working and keeps your adrenals healthy and keeps your insulin stable so that the rest of you can be healthy. Now, the other thing that I want you to know is that when insulin spikes like this, for a man, it takes testosterone and turns it into, guess what? Estrogen. So, you know those guys who have put on some weight and now they've got a butt and they've got, I call them breasticles. They're overweight and they have a chest. That's because their insulin has taken testosterone, the thing that makes them manly, the thing that keeps their muscles intact, the thing that keeps their bones strong and healthy, the thing that keeps them sexy and virile. It's taken that testosterone and turned it into estrogen, so they are actually having estrogenic physiological changes. Conversely, insulin spikes in women take estrogen and turn it into, guess what? Testosterone. So lots of young women are developing a condition called PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, which is the result of insulin spikes taking estrogen and turning it into testosterone, and then the testosterone causes cyst on the ovaries. So you can see how very, very important it is to maintain your insulin, maintain your blood sugar so that you don't have those insulin spikes, so that you don't have those dips in sugar, in blood sugar. So I'm going to be ready to take your questions here in just a moment, but I want to just overview a little bit and just tell you what chronic stress can look like in terms of symptoms. So seasonal affective disorder, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, hypothyroidism, depression, eating too much, craving sugars, craving salt, weight gain, fatigue. All of these are associated with either too much or too little cortisol. And there's the reference for this particular slide. Here are some of the red flags that might show up on your last blood chemistry. If you haven't had blood chemistry done for a while, you might contact me and I'll order it for you. Or if you've had it recently done but you don't have the results, go ahead and call your doctor's office. Those results belong to you. Ask them to send them to you. And then compare them to this slide. Is your potassium increased or your sodium and chlorides and glucose decreased? Those are signs of adrenal hypofunction, adrenal fatigue in other words. On the other hand, if your potassium is decreased and sodium and chlorides and glucose are increased as well as triglycerides, those are signs that your adrenals are in that hyper-worry state. And by the way, cortisol tends to cause us to gain weight around the middle first. So if you've noticed that your waist has increased and you haven't really, you can't really think of anything in your diet that has contributed to that. You're not eating a bag of Oreos every day and you're keeping up with your regular exercise routine, then it's very possible that your stress and your worry is actually causing your body to gather weight around your middle. And that is the first sign of insulin resistance beginning to occur. So what are some of the things that you can do to reduce your stress level? Well, you want to avoid certain foods, chemicals, and behaviors. And concentrated sugars are at the top of that list, concentrated sugar and caffeine. I tell my patients, if it doesn't come in the package that God put it in, please do not eat it. So if you are eating a lot of prepared foods, those foods are full of preservatives, they're full of sugar, they're full of gluten. They are more than likely contributing very, very greatly to a poor state of health, or will very soon. Alcohol, of course, is a double-edged sword. Alcohol in moderation is a good thing, helps us relax. A good glass of red wine, white wine as well, has some really great things called resveratrol in them, which are antioxidants and contribute to anti-aging. But then on the other hand, if we're using alcohol every night to reduce our stress, or think we reduce our stress, then we can be causing ourselves lots of trouble. Allergic foods, the top of the list for allergic foods are gluten, that's all of your grains, your wheat and oats and barley and rye, your dairy products, soy, what I call your junk meats, and so forth. Then partially hydrogenated fats, artificial sweeteners, folks, they're toxins. Even what's the newest one? Not NutraSweet. Equal. There's another one now that they say is made from sugar. Well, yeah, it's made from sugar, but it has a molecule of chlorine attached. And when it gets into your body, it's not processed as sugar because your body reads it as a toxin and tries to get rid of it. So cut that stuff out and go for your natural sweeteners, honey, maple syrup. If you're going to sweeten something, go ahead and use a little white sugar or agave.
Are you referring
also, sorry?
Were you referring to Splenda, sucralose, or stevia?
Sucralose. I was referring to sucralose, not to stevia. Stevia is actually a natural sweetener that is very healthy, actually helps to manage your blood sugar, so it would be preferable to all the others. Then we have this issue of overtraining. So in America we have this all or nothing kind of thing. People sometimes get actually addicted to the endorphins that they get from training their bodies, and overtraining, of course, tearing muscle down in order to build it up, overdoing anything physiologically, abusing your body is a stressor. And so learning to use your body, not abuse your body, would be really a good idea. Inadequate sleep. We need 8 hours of sleep, folks. Stabilize your glucose levels. Eat breakfast. Eat every 2 to 3 hours. Snack on low glycemic foods. Avoid all fruit juices and even carrot juice. These things are, yes, they've got lots of antioxidants in them, but they've got tons of sugar in them. Eat the whole fruit instead. Eat the whole carrot instead. And on your plate, you want to have as many colors as possible, and then lots of lean meat and fish. Fish, we don't eat nearly enough fish. So exercise in the aerobic heart level, this is crucial. Walking so that you can walk fast enough so that you can still carry on a conversation with someone. If you can't, if you're walking so fast or jogging so fast that you can't carry on a conversation, it means that you are focusing that you're burning in the anaerobic level, and then you're stressing your body. So you want to keep it in the aerobic level because that's what utilizes the fatty acid and fat burning system of the body instead of the sugar burning system that's induced by anaerobic exercise. And then relaxation techniques, meditation, positive imagery, prayer, chanting, doing a walking meditation, and there's some technology called the VSA that if you don't know about it, you might want to Google that. It's very powerful stuff. Okay, I am ready for questions.
All righty. Wow, this has been good. Very, very good. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Love the pictures. Absolutely love them. Okay, I'm going to be taking the questions on this end. Folks, just remember you can type in the questions in the panel to your right. Yes, this is going to be recorded. Some people are asking about the slides. Annelle and I will talk about that afterwards, but we do not generally make the slides available. Okay. What could functional medicine do for someone who has had an acute pesticide spill? This person was a former pest control worker and is now dealing with various issues.
Mm-hmm. Well, that would be a situation where you would want to make sure that all your detoxification organs were working at optimum. So you'd want to make sure that your kidneys were working properly and your liver. And your liver is primarily dependent upon a substance called glutathione for its detoxification pathways. Glutathione is a substance that it's difficult to take it in its raw forms because the molecule is too big to be absorbed, but it is available in transdermal creams, and your body will actually make it if you take a supplement called N-acetylcysteine. So a homeopathic detox of your kidneys, your liver, and your gut, eliminating, of course, any other toxins in your environment, and making sure that your liver detoxification pathways are open to the maximum. There are places across America where you can get IV glutathione, which would be very helpful. Glutathione is involved in just about every metabolic process, and so you can actually get injections of glutathione, but you would need to be working with a naturopath or probably a osteopath in order to have those services available to you.
Okay. And now I'm going to take the controls briefly just to do a quick commercial, if you don't mind. However, someone wanted you to go back to the page. Let me see. Let me be sure I have that page. She wanted you to go back to the one that tells the organ function, how the organ function relates to the different categories. E.g., category 1 pertains to colon, category 2 to low.
Oh, right. Okay.
I'll give it back to you in a minute, but let me just take this for the meantime.
I've got it.
Oops. Okay. I'll give it back to you in a minute.
Okay.
Folks, just wanted to make a quick announcement here. Sherry has been working on this in the background. We do have a series that's available called the Healthy Emotions, Healthy You series. We talked about stress and quite about six different webinars contained in that series. That is going to be available on the home page. You can get it at a discount for the next couple of days. Also, Annelle's forms, the ones you talked about earlier, are on the home page as well, and they are just below the banner where her picture is. So you can always get that. And of course, this presentation, she will be receiving an email afterwards if you wanted to purchase the presentation. Okay, and now I'm going to give it back to you, and we'll continue with the questions.
Okay. So here are the categories.
Okay, you need to accept it first so we can see your screen.
I think I did.
Okay.
Let's see here. Screen share. Okay.
Bingo.
There we go. Got it?
Got it. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, let's go on with the questions. Will using stevia do the same thing to the pancreas as regular sugar does?
You know, that's a question that I've asked myself many times, and I'm not absolutely convinced of the answer, but the one that keeps coming up over and over again is, on the one hand, yes, your brain reads it as sweet, and so it will trigger the production of insulin, but stevia has a blood sugar stabilizing effect. I don't know the exact physiology of that, the biochemistry of that, but that's, so I would say it's an equivocal answer. Yes, it's going to trigger your brain to respond to sweet, but it manages and stabilizes blood sugar as part of one of its natural effects.
Okay. What does VSA stand for, please?
VSA stands for Voice Stress Assessment. It's a technology that uses voice stress analysis and sound therapy to reduce stress as it's stored in your body in terms of trauma and in your history. There is another name for it now. The new systems are called EVOX, and if you Google either VSA, Voice Stress Assessment, or EVOX, you'll come up with some websites that talk about that kind of work. If you're in the Tulsa area, there are a couple of practitioners there in the area, Dr. Maya Christabel and Lita Bell. Our offices are on South Peoria, and you'll be able to find them if you Google them. They both do this, use this technology to help people get over trauma and stress.
Yes, indeed, and I've actually sat down on Maya's table and been treated myself. So we're going to be getting
Pretty
Maya
interesting stuff.
It really is, and Maya will be coming on very shortly to explain how this works. It's fascinating stuff. All right, someone says, fantastic presentation. Cannot wait to watch it again.
Oh, good.
I concur. Okay, female age 59, 1 ovary. I have 9.9 estrogen, normal progesterone. She is on BioCream, and she has 65 testosterone. I don't know if you know what those numbers mean. How can you be high in both estrogen and testosterone if the body changes estrogen into testosterone in stressed women?
Well, you're high in estrogen because you're on the estrogen cream. And the irony about that is that if your insulin is out of control, the more estrogen you put on your body, the more testosterone your insulin is going to make. I am not an advocate of estrogen creams or progesterone creams for that matter. I believe that they are a Band-Aid, again, rather than going to the source and correcting the problem. They are treating the symptoms. So you would do well to have a saliva test done, checking your adrenals and your hormone levels to actually assess where they are, the estrone, estradiol, estriol, testosterone, and all of your cortisol levels, as well as your insulin levels. That kind of testing is available from Diagnostics for about $180, and it will tell you an enormous amount of information. The primary thing that you need to know, though, the lever that you need to tap is your blood sugar. You need to keep that stable. You need to get your blood sugar down or stabilized and resensitize those insulin receptor sites. There are supplements that will help you do that. And by changing your weight, changing your exercise, changing your diet, you can actually bring yourself back from insulin resistance into health.
So the key is test, don't guess.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. Please clarify again what allergic foods are.
Okay. There are allergic foods, and then there are sensitivity foods. And of course, most of us do not have food allergies. These are the allergies that cause, your throat to close up, like a peanut allergy or strawberry allergy or shrimp allergy. Those are actual food allergies. Most of what is happening in America today are food sensitivities, and we are most likely to develop sensitivities to the foods that we eat over and over and over and over again. So what is the American diet made out of? Wheat. We get up, we have breakfast, cereal, milk. Then we get to the office where we have a bagel. Then we go to lunch where we have a sandwich. Then we go back to the office where in the afternoon we have a cookie and a cup of coffee. And then in the evening we go home and we have pasta or a hamburger or something else that has wheat in it. So we've had wheat 5 or 6 times a day. Most of those sandwiches have had cheese on them. If we were being really healthy, we maybe had some yogurt along the way. We've had some cream in our coffee. We were having cheese on our pizza or cheese on our burrito, and so dairy is another one. Eggs, of course, is another one that we seem to eat under a lot of stress sometimes because it's kind of a comfort food. But most all packaged foods have eggs or egg protein in them. Soy, there's big controversy about soy, folks. I think if it's fermented soy, it is probably less likely to create an allergy or a sensitivity, but if it's processed soy, as in soy milk, and by the way, soy milk is estrogenic, so for men it's not a good idea to drink soy milk. For women, it can throw your hormones off. Soy is very high on the sensitivity list. Tomatoes, believe it or not, again, most Americans, that's the standard vegetable that most Americans are eating every day. If they're not eating raw tomatoes, they're eating tomato sauce. And then junk lunch meats that have a lot of chemicals in them. Shellfish, the fish that feed off the bottom of the oceans, we have a tendency to have sensitivity to those as well. Peanuts, and those are the most common food sensitivities.
Okay. Annelle, the questions keep piling in, so we're just going to go with you.
Okay.
Whenever you feel you've had enough, just let me know, okay? And then we'll just wrap it up for the night. Okay. I have had food allergy testing done and found out that I am allergic to baker's and brewer's yeast. Do you know if the yeasts found in naturally occurring yeasts, such as found in sourdough breads, are the same as these other yeasts? Love yeast in this question.
Yeah, the baker's yeast is the same. You will need to if you're going to have any kind of baked goods, they'll need to be soda leavened. You'll need to avoid both beer and anything that's brewed with yeast. Beer and I think wine has some yeast in it. And then you'll need to be off of breads. Now sourdough, interesting thing about sourdough is that if it's old-fashioned sourdough and it sours for 72 hours, that may change the character of that yeast. I'm not sure, but I know for a fact that it changes the character of the gluten. It actually breaks down that gluten protein. So sometimes people who are sensitive to gluten can eat sourdough bread where they can't eat regular bread.
Okay. Can you show me the slide on adrenal hypofunction again?
Let's see here.
And while you're doing that, there's a question saying, is xylitol okay?
Xylitol is okay. It has some qualities that are good for us. It's really great for the mucous membranes in the mouth and the teeth. It too has blood sugar stabilizing qualities. But again, it's got that other edge to it, which is the brain reads it as sweet, and so it encourages the production of insulin. But it's better than sugar.
Okay. Now, VSA is the same as EVOX, right? You said that earlier.
Correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That takes care of that question. Please discuss the scoring for NTAF some more.
Okay. Let's see here. Escape. I'm getting the hang of this here, I think. Escape. It's current. NTAF. Okay. So this is what the form looks like. And Section A has to do with how toxicity is affecting how your brain is working. So if you're scoring most all of these symptoms, or if you're scoring quite a few symptoms with 2s and 3s, then you need to do a detox, very specifically a liver detox. Section B has to do with how stress is affecting your brain function. Section C, 1 and 2 has to do with how your blood sugar is affecting your brain function. So low blood sugar causes your energy to drop. You get shaky, irritable, lightheaded. You actually feel energized after you eat, etc. You may be depending on coffee to get you going, but then you get agitated or you feel easily upset or nervous between meals. That means that you're hypoglycemic. Your blood sugar is too low, and your brain thinks you're going to die. And then Section 2, C2 has to do with insulin dysregulation, being fatigued after meals, craving sweets and sugars, needing stimulants after your meals because your eating actually makes you tired. Your waist is bigger compared to your hip. Your weight has gained. You're having difficulty falling asleep. These have to do with insulin dysregulation. Then Section 1S has to do with serotonin production. Serotonin is the neurotransmitter that Paxil and Prozac seek to recycle. And if you're answering anything more than about 10 or 11 on Section 1S, you definitely need some serotonin support. Section 2D has to do with dopamine. This is your ability to finish tasks, to be inspired, to handle your, if you have addiction issues, more than likely you need some dopamine. If you have trouble sticking to a program, more than likely you need some dopamine. Section 3G has to do with GABA. GABA is the chill pill. It helps you chill out, relax, calm down, see things clearly, organize yourself, switch your mind off in order to relax, and so forth. And then Section 4 has to do with an amino acid called acetylcholine, which is like fuel for your neurons. It helps your brain neurons talk to each other. When I study with my mentors, I keep a bottle of acetylcholine right in front of me, and I take one every hour just to make sure that my brain is working, and I'm going to remember that stuff.
Nice tip. So acetylcholine helps you focus and stay concentrated.
Right.
Excellent. Okay. I didn't even know you had pills. You could take pills like that. Okay, folks, we certainly cannot cover all these questions. Looks like you've just touched on a hot button here, Annelle.
Okay.
It's an issue
Well,
that touches everybody at in a real spot. What I'm going to say is that for those of you whose questions have not been answered or will not be answered tonight, we have created the comment section on our site. So if you go back, you can click on it, the banner, and you can put in your comments there, and we will be sure to.
I will do my best to go back and answer as many questions as I can.
Well, we appreciate that. We really do. Thank you. All right. Here. I'll take a few more questions here.
Okay.
I apologize. I missed out on most of the call because I got messed up on the time. Well, sorry about that. But I was wondering if prolonged stress for years affects your body many years later, even though the majority of the stress has ended. My body feels more stressed or more messed up now that it has ended than when I was going through it. And I am very sensitive towards food and stress now.
Yes. Yeah, it's sort of a rebound effect. Because your body is programmed for survival, it will get you through those very stressful times. It will do its best to get you through those very stressful times. And then when the stress is over, it needs you to rest. It needs you to give it the time to recover. It needs you to feed it properly. It needs you to relax and meditate. So yes, it is not at all uncommon for people to get through very high stressful periods and then fall apart when the stress is over.
The rebound effect.
Right.
Gotcha. Well, we have lots of people saying fantastic. Thank you so much. Someone says this is the most fantastic presentation. Thank you.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure. Just a little advertisement here. Please feel free to go to my website, and those forms will also be on my website, or there's a link to email me. I'm happy to send you the forms there as well.
Great. And is there anything you want them to specifically, any parts that you want them to pay attention on your website? Do you have a training thing going on?
and now,
Yes.
if you want to give me the address to your website right now, I'll put it on
It's
our website.
AnnelleNorman.com.
AnnelleNorman.com.
Yeah, it's AnnelleNorman.com.
Okay, great.
There is a link on that website to another website called SurviveAndThriveKits.com. We are in the beginnings of flu season, and the people who are particularly interested in stress because they are stressed are more likely to suffer from the flu. And on Survive and Thrive Kits, we offer some alternatives to the influenza vaccine, immunization, and some ideas of ways to protect yourself. And there's also a link on that website, SurviveAndThriveKits.com, to our flu blog that we put together last year during the H1N1 flu scare.
Oh, that's great. So people can actually go there and see your comments and
Right.
connect with other people as well.
Right.
Fantastic. Well, folks, we strongly encourage you to go to AnnelleNorman.com to get to participate and to glean more wisdom. Obviously, 1 hour just doesn't do it. So please go to that website and get some more information. SurviveAndThriveKits.com, correct? Someone's asking.
Correct.
Okay. Do you work long distance with people?
I certainly do. Skype is wonderful. Even if you don't have Skype, which makes it be like you're in my office and I'm in your home. If you don't have Skype, then I can do phone consultations as well. I can order blood work and saliva tests all over the country, and we can work together just as easily as if you live in my neighborhood.
Excellent. I'm sure some people will take you up on that. All right, we're going to wrap it up right now. Annelle, thank you so much. And
Thank you, and happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving to you. Next time we're going to get you on to, and this time we'll have a video of you. We'll show the video.
Right.
With a few issues there.
Yeah, and next time maybe we can talk about some alternatives to antibiotics and vaccines and so forth, ways that people can take care of themselves when they're ill.
Excellent. Excellent. And you know how many slides we went for that, right? Like 100?
Yeah, I do. Okay, David, thank you so much. Thank you, Sherry. This was lots of fun. I enjoyed every minute.
All right, thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
All right, folks, we will be sending you emails just if you would like to take advantage of if you would like to get the recording, and I think the slides, we'll talk with Annelle about the slides. So you guys have a great night and a great weekend and a great Thanksgiving. Well, we do have a few webinars next week, so we should see you before Thanksgiving. Take care. God bless. Have a great night.